Thanks for joining us. I'm Tamika Alexander. We begin tonight with two cases with too many opinions and debates to count. This week, they all take center stage at the U.S. Supreme Court when justices hear arguments in two same-sex marriage cases that could have profound impacts across the country. This comes at a time when an increasing number of Americans, 53%, support same-sex marriage, according to national polls. Tori Dunnan has a preview of what's at stake for both sides.
Snow isn't stopping people from lining up outside the U.S. Supreme Court for a chance to witness history. They're vying for limited seats inside the courtroom, where oral arguments will be heard this week in two cases regarding same-sex marriage. Wednesday, the justices will hear arguments on the Defense of Marriage Act, also known as DOMA. But first, California's controversial Proposition 8 is on the docket for Tuesday.
Yes on 8! Yes on 8!
Prop 8, passed in 2008, amended the state constitution to ban same-sex marriage. Opponents say it's discriminatory and unconstitutional.
When you put the face of discrimination on families and friends, that people understand there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to discriminate against gays and lesbians from exercising their fundamental right to marry.
DOMA, passed in 1996, defines marriage at the federal level as a union between a man and woman. This week, the highest court will be asked whether the government can deny same-sex couples the same rights as heterosexual couples, even in the 9 states and District of Columbia where same-sex marriage is legal.
Why do we have to be married locally but federally? It's nothing. We're friends.
People who support Prop 8 and DOMA say they are not issues that should be settled in the courts.
Americans have an inevitable and inalienable right to determine our own history, and that's really a fundamental aspect of America.
The court is expected to issue a ruling in June. In Washington, I'm Tori Dunnan reporting.
While the Supreme Court debates whether the government can recognize same-sex marriage, there is still lively discourse over what the principle of marriage is. WVUA's Travis Leader joins us now. And Travis, it doesn't seem like it's a lot of middle ground of who should be able to tie the knot.
Absolutely, Tamika. You know, this is an issue that both sides are very passionate about. Now, while many homosexual couples feel it's their right to get married, others simply say that's not God's intention. Now, some argue marriage should be intended for what they see is the biblical description, a man and a woman remaining faithful and having kids together and finally living out what they see as God's design for marriage. Yet some same-sex couples say laws like the Defense of Marriage Act are discriminatory. They argue the symbol of marriage holds more merit in society and everyone should have the right to enjoy the same partnerships.
The term marriage is important. It has global recognition. No one celebrates a domestic partnership anniversary. They celebrate an anniversary of marriage.
When we get to unions or we get to relationships, you know, that's everybody's choice. But as far as the actual definition of marriage that comes from Scripture, it is between a man and a woman.
Supreme Court justices will hear a challenge to the federal government's Defense of Marriage Act tomorrow and are expected to make a decision sometime this summer. Tamika.
Thanks, Travis. The U.S. Department of Justice is opposing Alabama's bid to ask the U.S. Supreme Court to consider the legality of parts of the state's immigration law. The state has asked the Supreme Court to hear arguments on a portion of the law banning people from harboring, concealing, or transporting illegal immigrants or encouraging illegal immigrants to stay in Alabama. A federal judge eliminated a section of a similar 2011 Georgia law earlier this week, saying it's preempted by federal law. Now for an update on the family that was crushed beneath a 300-pound sign at the Birmingham airport. Officials say Heather Brissett and 3 of her sons were seriously hurt when the panel fell, killing her 10-year-old son, Luke. According to the family priest, Brissett still does not know that her son is dead. Witnesses say after the sign fell, it took 6 people to lift the large board and a dozen people to hold it up while first responders administered aid. Officials were investigating how the sign fell at the newly renovated airport and took down an identical sign Saturday. Now for an arrest in a 35-year-old homicide case in Tuscaloosa. 18-year-old Teresa White was found dead back in April of 1978. Now James Michael Hayes is facing murder charges in the case. WVUA's Jennifer Edwards explains how those close with the family are glad to see justice moving forward.
Former Tuscaloosa Police Chief Ken Swindle attended church with the White family. He also worked the investigation when 18-year-old Teresa White went missing.
We started looking for Teresa, and then on the morning, early morning, I believe it was on 20th, maybe April the 20th, 1978, that she was located up at Lake Nickel Dam. I was calling my partner. He and I went to the scene and identified Teresa's body that morning.
Swindle says James Michael Hayes became a suspect early in the investigation, but no arrests were ever made.
I know there was a lot of evidence, a lot of circumstantial evidence at the time that pointed to Mr. Hayes as him being the suspect, but there just wasn't quite enough to charge him at that time.
35 years later, Tuscaloosa County's cold case unit was able to make the arrest.
A lot of it just had to do with good police work. He re-interviewed witnesses, found additional witness information, re-interviewed the suspect, and was able to bring a charge through this grand jury.
Baker says Teresa White was last seen leaving the supermarket lounge in Tuscaloosa on April 15, 1978. Her body was found 5 days later in a wooded area near Lake Nickel Dam. Investigators say the cause of death was strangulation. Baker says Hayes was a suspect in 3 other cases involving strangulation of females.
Hayes was charged with the murder of Regina Quarles, which happened in August of that same year. He also assaulted with intent to murder 2 other females. He also was charged with those.
Swindle says he's proud of the police work and glad to see closure for the White family.
Baker says Hayes is now facing a capital murder charge. Hayes arrived at the Tuscaloosa County Jail this morning from the Draper Correctional Facility, where he is serving a life sentence for the murder of Regina Quarles. Baker says Hayes will go back to the Draper Correctional Facility while he awaits trial for White's case. An update now in a shooting in Tuscaloosa County that happened on Saturday. We're hearing from investigators about what's now become an attempted murder case. The Tuscaloosa Metro Homicide Unit says officers responded to Gentry Point off of Highway 69 South, where a 52-year-old male suffered a life-threatening gunshot wound to the chest. The man was transported to DCH by ambulance and underwent surgery. Captain Lloyd Baker with Tuscaloosa Metro Homicide says 32-year-old Daryl Craig Christian has been arrested and charged with attempted murder.
The suspect's mother is dating the victim, and there was supposedly an altercation between the mother and the boyfriend that angered the suspect. An altercation occurred, and then the suspect shot the boyfriend.
Baker says the victim is in intensive care but is expected to make a full recovery. Police are investigating a head-on collision that happened in Northport that sent 4 people to the hospital. It happened last night around 7:30 on Highway 82 in front of Spiller Furniture and Fast Track Express Car Wash. The head-on collision involved an SUV and a small car. Northport Police Department and Northport Fire and Rescue responded to the accident. The injuries of the victims are unknown at this time. And accident data shows that speed and traffic volume raise the risk of fatal accidents, leading to identifiable pockets of higher crash rates when those elements combine. 537 fatal crashes in Jefferson and Shelby counties have been reported between 2007 and 2011. Analysts say statistics show the number of fatal crashes trending upward toward the end of that period, though stronger laws intended to improve driver behavior could reverse that trend. Turning now to the weather, let's get a first check on Alabama's home team forecast. Chief Meteorologist Richard Scott joins us now. Hey, Richard, when is it going to actually start feeling like spring out there?
May take a little while, Tamika. By the way, good Monday night to you. Temperatures in the 30s now, 38 in Tuscaloosa, 36 in Birmingham. We're all going to have a freeze tonight, even down in Montgomery, where temperatures are in those low 40s at this hour. Had a few snow flurries across some of our northern counties, places north of Fayette and Jasper, seeing a few flakes flying around. Didn't make it as far south as I-20, but some places over North Alabama did get to see some activity earlier today. Nothing obviously stuck on the ground there. Temperatures tomorrow morning, starting off the bus stop forecast, talking 31. Going to be a cold start to the day and also breezy. Wind chill values will be in the 20s by that point. When will it warm up, though? How about your weekend forecast? Weather is coming up.
The IRS estimates 440,000 Alabamians will wait until April to file their tax returns. IRS spokesman Dan Boone says people waiting until close to the April 15th deadline should not miss out on earned income tax credits. Some workers who couldn't qualify in previous years may now qualify because of a change in marital status or addition of a child. If you have questions about your tax returns, you can call 1-800-906-9887. Well, it may be spring break, but some students are practicing their learning skills by building Legos. That's because the Children's Hands-On Museum is hosting a Lego camp. Each day of the week has a different theme, and today's theme was Things That Go. The Lego camp goes on until the 29th of this month. The ages range from 5 to 12 years old, and registration is still available. To register, you can contact 205-349-4235, or for a shortcut to their website, just go to WVUATV.com. Welcome back. Is the case that continues to captivate the country. Jerry Sandusky is speaking out from behind bars where he is serving no less than 30 years for sexually abusing young boys over a 15-year period. Elizabeth Corden has the story.
Jerry Sandusky gave his first interview from prison to a filmmaker who's making a documentary with the goal of clearing Penn State's longtime football coach, the late Joe Paterno's name. Excerpts aired on NBC's Today Show. When asked about Coach Mike McQueary's testimony that he saw Sandusky sexually abusing a boy in a Penn State locker room shower, Sandusky says there were inconsistencies in McQueary's story.
I don't understand how anybody would have walked into that locker room where he was and heard sounds associated that with sex going on. You know, like he said, that could have been, I mean, there would have been that would have been the last thing I would have thought about. I would have thought maybe fooling around or something like that, but
Sandusky said he doesn't believe Paterno would have allowed him to continue working if he thought Sandusky was a danger.
If he absolutely thought I was, I'd say no. If he had a suspicion, I don't know the answer to that.
Paterno's family said it had no part in this interview and calls it an unfortunate development. A statement said in part, releasing a recording at this time nearly a year after he was found guilty on 45 counts is transparently self-serving and yet another insult to the victims and anyone who cares about the truth in this tragic story. Earlier this year, a judge denied Sandusky's request for a new trial. Last month, he filed an appeal against his conviction and sentence. I'm Elizabeth Corden reporting.
Penn State also released a statement saying Jerry Sandusky's statements today continue to open wounds for the victims and the victims of child sexual abuse everywhere. We have tremendous respect for the men who came forward to tell their stories publicly. Penn State continues to take important steps, including the training of more than 11,000 employees and volunteers on how to recognize and report suspected child abuse. Well, Italy's High Court says it will issue a decision Tuesday morning on whether to overturn American student Amanda Knox's acquittal in the murder of her roommate. The court heard 6 hours of arguments on Monday before going into deliberations. After several hours, it announced it would issue the decision Tuesday morning. The High Court normally issues the decisions the same day it hears arguments, but prosecutors say that the court needed another day to make its decision. Knox was acquitted in 2011. Well, both houses of the Alabama legislature will begin work on a bill in 2 weeks that could move Medicaid to a for-profit managed care model. If passed, the bill would build a framework that the state Medicaid agency would operate within to deliver comprehensive health care to Medicaid consumers. The plan calls for up to 8 regions within the state that would be independently managed within their borders. If the legislation passes, it would not be fully implemented until 2017. Well, President Barack Obama has established 5 new national monuments. The White House released a statement saying the president signed proclamations for new monuments in Delaware, Maryland, New Mexico, Ohio, and Washington State. They included a Maryland museum honoring Underground Railroad conductor Harriet Tubman, as well as Delaware's first national park. The White House says the new sites will benefit tourism and help celebrate the nation's history.